Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is not entertainment. It is not a feel-good message, and it is not meant to simply motivate you for a day. This is a warning, a promise, and a truth that has shaped every empire, every fortune, every great destiny that ever rose from the dust. Master yourself, or the world will master you. Every day you wake up, you are entering a battlefield you cannot see. A battlefield of thoughts, habits, impulses, fears, doubts, distractions, and expectations. A battlefield where the enemy is not another person, not society, not circumstances, but the parts of you that refuse to evolve, the parts of you that cling to comfort, to hesitation, to weakness, the parts of you that whisper, "Not today, maybe tomorrow." And the truth is harsh. If you do not take command of your mind, something else will. If you do not choose your direction, the world will choose it for you. If you do not build your own thoughts, they will be built for you by 1,000 invisible forces: fear, failure, mediocrity, and the opinions of the masses. Napoleon Hill said that every human being is the master of their fate the moment they take full possession of their mind. But most people never do. They let their minds drift like a ship without a captain, pulled by the tides of emotion and the winds of circumstance. They surrender their potential not because they are incapable, but because they never learned to control the inner world that shapes the outer one. Look around. Most people are not living, they are reacting. Reacting to stress, reacting to temptation, reacting to pressure, reacting to the noise of society telling them who they should be, what they should want, and what limits they must obey. This is why few rise, and many remain stuck where they stand. Because mastery is rare, self-command is rare, and the world gladly controls those who refuse to control themselves. You must understand something. Every great figure in history, every leader, every creator, every innovator, they all won their inner war long before the world ever saw their success. Edison did not become Edison when the light bulb turned on. He became Edison during the thousands of silent failures where he forced his mind to hold on to belief while everything around him screamed quit. Henry Ford did not revolutionize transportation when he built the Model T. His revolution began when he mastered the belief that whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. Because he realized the greatest machinery he would ever engineer was not made of steel, but thought. Abraham Lincoln did not free a nation because he sought power. He did it because he had mastered despair, pain, loss, and loneliness long before he ever walked into a political arena. The man who could not control his emotions would have collapsed under the burden of a divided country. But he mastered himself, therefore he mastered destiny. And Walt Disney did not build an empire because he drew mice on paper. He built it because he mastered the one thing that separates dreamers from creators: the ability to hold on to a vision when the world calls you crazy. These men were not perfect, they were not lucky, they were not chosen by fate. They chose themselves long before anyone else did, and they trained their minds like warriors train their bodies. Success did not create them. They created success. This is why I tell you, before you try to master your career, your finances, your relationships, your habits, or your future, you must master yourself. Because if you don't, life will punish you with the consequences of your own neglect, not as cruelty, but as law. The law that Napoleon Hill called cause and effect, the ultimate truth that you receive not what you wish for, but what you are prepared for. Mastery begins the moment you stop blaming the world and start commanding yourself. It begins when you stop looking for shortcuts and start building character. It begins when you stop being seduced by distractions and start being guided by purpose. It begins when your inner voice becomes stronger than the voices around you. And it begins now, not tomorrow, not next year, not when you're ready. Because no one in history was ever ready before they began. You cannot wait for clarity. You cannot wait for confidence. You cannot wait for the perfect moment. Those are rewards earned by stepping forward despite uncertainty. Self-mastery is forged, not found. It is built in the mornings you rise when you want to sleep, in the evenings you push when you want to quit, in the hours where silence tries to intimidate you, in the moments where discipline is the only voice that still believes in you. It is built each time you choose growth over comfort, purpose over pleasure, vision over distraction. And every one of those choices is a brick, one more piece of the inner fortress you are constructing. Because the world cannot master the person who has mastered himself. But to master yourself, you must first confront the truth most people run from. Your mind is not naturally disciplined. Your thoughts are not naturally ordered. Your emotions are not naturally your allies. Left alone, the mind becomes a wild garden, and a wild garden grows weeds by default. Fear is a weed. Doubt is a weed. Procrastination, laziness, overthinking, envy, all weeds. If you do not pull them out by intention, they grow by habit. And the world knows this. That is why it distracts you, why it tempts you, why it feeds you entertainment, environments, and influences that make you forget who you were meant to become. The world doesn't need to defeat you. It only needs you to forget that you are powerful. This is why self-mastery is not optional. It is survival. Not physical survival, but the survival of your potential, your identity, your future self who is depending on you to rise. And the first battlefield where mastery begins is your mindset. Your mindset is the lens through which you interpret everything: the opportunity, the challenge, the setback, the rejection, the failure. What one person calls a dead end, another calls a doorway. What one person sees as a loss, another sees as information. Your mindset determines which one you will be. Napoleon Hill taught that every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. But that seed is invisible to those who have not disciplined their thinking. The average person experiences difficulty and immediately thinks, "Why me?" But the one who masters himself asks a different question. What is this trying to build in me? What strength is being demanded from me right now? This is how mindset becomes a tool instead of a trap. Think of Thomas Edison. When his laboratory burned to the ground, decades of work charred into ash, he didn't collapse. He didn't complain. He didn't give in to despair. He looked at the flames and said, "Thank God all our mistakes were burned up. We can start again fresh." That is not luck. That is not positivity. That is not optimism. That is mastery. The mastery of his own interpretation, his own attitude, his own internal response to disaster. And this is where so many people fall. They try to control the world while ignoring the only thing they ever had control over: their thoughts, their choices, their reactions, their focus. When you master those, you stop living as a prisoner of circumstances. You become the architect. But mindset alone is not enough. Belief is the engine that turns mindset into motion. Belief is the inner agreement you make with your potential. It's the quiet voice that says, "This is possible," even when no evidence exists. It's the mental blueprint that makes greatness inevitable long before it appears. Without belief, discipline feels like punishment. Without belief, action feels meaningless. Without belief, failure feels final. Every great achievement in history stood on the foundation of belief before it ever stood in the real world as a physical form. Carnegie believed in building an empire from nothing. Ford believed he could create automobiles for the masses. Disney believed that imagination could become infrastructure. Oprah believed her voice mattered long before anyone listened. Jobs believed he could put 1,000 songs in your pocket while others laughed. Hill believed that the mind could shape destiny while people dismissed him as a dreamer. Belief is the language of creators. Doubt is the language of the world. If you want to master yourself, belief cannot be optional, because without belief, you will sabotage yourself every time you get close to rising. You must believe so deeply that the world's disbelief becomes irrelevant. You must believe so strongly that your excuses start to feel embarrassed. You must believe so intensely that even your fears bow in respect. But belief becomes powerful only when paired with clarity. Clarity is the compass. Without clarity, ambition scatters into 1,000 directions. Without clarity, energy becomes noise instead of force. The universe does not respond to vague intentions. It responds to precise desire. You must ask yourself, what do you want to become? What life do you want to build? What impact do you want to leave? What version of yourself is waiting on the other side of discipline? The clearer the vision, the stronger the pull. The stronger the pull, the easier the discipline. The easier the discipline, the faster the transformation. And clarity is not just seeing what you want. It is knowing what you must refuse. To say yes to your future, you must say no to the impulses that steal it. The world offers endless doors, but the person who masters himself knows which ones are traps and which ones are destiny. Once clarity is established, vision takes over. Vision is the movie your mind plays of the future you are building, the scenes of success that keep your spirit alive even on the hardest days. Every visionary in history used the mind as a projector long before they used the world as a canvas. Vision is not fantasy. Vision is focus. Vision is strategy. Vision is the blueprint of what your belief is preparing you to earn. And when your mindset strengthens your belief, when your belief fuels your clarity, when your clarity sharpens your vision, discipline becomes inevitable. Not punishment, power. Not restriction, alignment. Not suffering, self-respect. Because discipline is not about forcing yourself to work. It is about becoming the kind of person who no longer negotiates with weakness. When you reach that stage, you do not chase success. Success begins to chase you. Discipline is the great separator, the invisible line that divides those who dream from those who rise. Most people treat discipline like a burden, a chain, a sacrifice. But those who master themselves understand the truth. Discipline is freedom disguised as effort. It is the force that unlocks every door impatience keeps locked. It is the bridge between who you are and who you are meant to become. It is the proof you give to the universe that you deserve the life you're asking for. You cannot expect greatness while practicing convenience. You cannot expect transformation while practicing inconsistency. And you cannot expect mastery while giving your impulses more authority than your intentions. Discipline demands that you choose purpose over pleasure. Purpose is not always loud. It is not always glamorous. Often it is quiet. It is the early morning alarms, the late-night focus, the silent repetition when nobody praises you, the dull hours sharpening skills the world doesn't yet value. This is why so few ever reach their potential, because the path requires a loyalty to your future that most people never develop. But the ones who do, they become unstoppable. Think about the athletes who train when the cameras are off, the writers who rewrite a single page 100 times, the entrepreneurs who keep building when the money hasn't come yet, the leaders who study when others sleep. They are not driven by the world's approval. They are driven by internal command. Their discipline is not an act. It is identity. It is who they are when nobody's watching. This becomes even more powerful when combined with the next element of self-mastery, consistent action. Action is the great translator between the inner world and the outer world. You can have mindset, belief, clarity, and vision, but without action, they remain dormant potential. Action is how thought becomes form. It is how desire becomes destiny.
It is how intention becomes impact. Every idea you have ever admired, every invention, every movement, every empire, all of them were born from a moment of action. Someone, somewhere, took a step when others only talked. Someone moved when others waited. Someone began when others hesitated. The world does not reward thoughts. It rewards execution. Napoleon Hill said that knowledge is only potential power. Real power comes from applied knowledge. This means you do not need to be the smartest, you do not need to have the best background, you do not need to have the most money, connections, or luck. The advantage belongs to the person who takes action while others prepare. You must become that person, the one who moves without waiting for perfect timing, because perfect timing is a myth created by people afraid to begin. Action builds momentum, and momentum builds belief, and belief builds consistency. Once you begin, the next step becomes easier, and soon the force of your discipline becomes stronger than the gravity of your excuses. But action alone is not enough. You must also cultivate gratitude. Gratitude is not simply being thankful. It is the mindset that keeps you grounded when you rise and lifted when you fall. It is the antidote to entitlement, frustration, and bitterness. It sharpens your perception of opportunity and dissolves the illusion of scarcity. The person who is grateful for small progress will continue moving when others quit. The person who appreciates their challenges grows stronger while others complain. The person who sees life as a gift uses every hour wisely because they know nothing is promised. Gratitude turns obstacles into teachers. It turns setbacks into redirection. It turns daily life into training for greatness. Without gratitude, success becomes fragile and pressure becomes overwhelming. But with gratitude, your spirit remains unshakable. Yet even gratitude is incomplete without adaptability. Life will not unfold according to your plans. The world will not adjust itself to your expectations. Circumstances will shift, people will change, doors will close, and opportunities will appear in places you did not expect. You must be flexible in your approach, while unbreakable in your purpose. Adaptability is the art of bending without breaking. It is the ability to pivot without losing direction. It is the skill of adjusting your strategy without abandoning your mission. Those who resist change crumble. Those who adapt rise. Every inventor, every leader, every empire builder had to adapt repeatedly. Edison adapted through countless failures. Lincoln adapted through national chaos. Ford adapted through industry backlash. Disney adapted through bankruptcy, criticism, and nearly every door being shut on him. The secret is simple. Adapt or be replaced. Evolve or be mastered by a world that will not slow down for you. And here is where the true heart of self-mastery reveals itself. Resilience. Resilience is the fuel of champions. It is the ability to get back up not because you are fearless, but because you refuse to surrender your destiny to temporary defeat. Napoleon Hill wrote that temporary defeat is not failure. It is feedback. It is training. It is refinement. It is life preparing you for the success you said you wanted. Most people treat setbacks as proof they should quit, but those who master themselves treat setbacks as invitations to rise. They understand that strength is not forged in moments of ease, but moments of resistance. They understand that diamonds are created under pressure, not comfort. They understand that greatness is earned through endurance, not preference. Resilience is not a trait, it is a decision, one you must remake every time life hits you harder than expected. And when resilience is strengthened by learning, something extraordinary happens. You become a force the world can no longer manipulate.